Hey guys, it's Ted Bogert with the Ted Show. We're back. Happy Monday. Happy Manic Monday for me and to you all. So excited when I get to highlight, spotlight anything in the arts. And today you guys are in for a treat. We have Peter Hastings Falk and Robert Barry with Robert Barry Gallery on the show today. We're going to talk about Collage. I love this title. It's time to stick together. 60 years of collage in America. I'm just so excited and honored to have you both on the show. Welcome.
Thank you so much for having us, Ted. It's an absolute pleasure.
Thanks, Ted.
I love everything about the arts. And we were talking before we went live how incredibly important it is that we try to help in this shift, this pivot, try to get as much out about the arts, because I believe it's an appreciated issue that you guys are going through right now, all arts, because of the pandemic. So we're going to focus on the positive, though, today. We're going to start with Peter. Tell us a little bit about you, Peter. Origin story. You know, people always want to know when it's an artist or somebody who loves art in the arts. Were you born like this, or did you have to learn it? So give us a little background.
Yeah. Oh boy, my wife told me that I needed to have an elevator pitch because I couldn't do it in 25 words or less. It just kept going and going. She said, no. She said, you make a market for forgotten artists. Nice. And to expand upon that, these are artists who undeservedly really slipped through the cracks of art history. So I'm really an art detective. So I became an art historian and a publisher of lots of art reference books, boring library type art reference book. But behind those are these incredible stories of artists who were as good or better than their more famous peers. And what we do is we bring them back. We do the research, and it's like going down to a sunken treasure galleon and bringing it up, and everyone is just thrilled about these kinds of things, discoveries. And Robert is, we have a real affinity because Robert also actually started off as a nerdy art historian like me. And he wound up going into the gallery world where we both say, hey, do you want to hear an amazing story? Because that's what really brings it to life for most people, the meaning behind the art, if you're going to be wanting to live with it. So there is just it's a profession from which one does not retire because you're constantly learning.
I love, were you always interested in art as a kid too?
Yeah, my mother was an artist, and I went to the same school, Rhode Island School of Design, after college, that is. That was my graduate work, and I sort of fell into it by discovering, I had an aha moment. And for anyone out there who's ever had an art history course, and you're listening to this professor and they're talking about these famous artists that they met back when they were 20 or something. And it went through my mind. I said, oh my God, you idiot. You met this artist, you're in their studio, and you don't own any work by them? Wasn't that an amazing experience you wanted to have a piece of? And so that sort of set me on the path of researching and digging up these artists who I realized, again, it's from doing the research, they were really important, but they somehow got forgotten, and sometimes it's for tragic reasons, whether it's drugs, alcohol, psychotic breaks. Of course, you could simply be guilty of just being a woman, especially in the 19th century.
Right.
Early 20s, all the way till about 20, 30 years ago. So there are a lot of really important works out there that will pay great psychological dividends for anybody who wants to discover them.
I love it. And I have to say before I go to Robert, when I first saw your name, I'm like, is Columbo still alive? And is he an artist now? This is insane. And so, I'm very glad I did that little detective work prior to the show, because I didn't know what was coming on.
Columbo besides having stolen my name. He did attend, he was an artist also, and he painted at the Art Students League in New York. He was a figurative painter, and he really, really, was a big part of his life.
Funny.
Yeah.
All right, Robert. Robert Barry with Robert Barry Gallery. Thank you so much for being on the show. Tell us a little bit about you.
Well, I guess the first thing, I had that aha moment probably when I was 13 or 14 years old. I went to the Met with my family, and I saw Jackson Pollock's ginormous Autumn Rhythm, one of those large all-over paintings, and that was really the moment that everything changed for me. Because I always thought art was landscape and figurative work. I never really saw a lot of abstract pieces. So when I saw this, there was paint splattered everywhere. There was multiple colors. There was gesture. There was color and this enormous scale, which is not something I've really seen before. And it was that moment where I realized I'm going to pursue a career in the arts. So soon after,
I love it. It was that early on.
Well, it's when you know, and that's usually in any phase of life or any decision, you have to go with your gut and make that decision based on how it feels to you. So one thing I want to ask you, you may be about to share that. It's just a little delay, so if it seems like I'm talking over you, I'm sorry, I'm not, I promise. The gallery, though, a lot of people who have art or are artists or have an artist's eye or heart, gallery is a different, that's a whole nother ball game. How did you get into the gallery world? Well, soon after I saw that painting, I realized I wanted to learn about art. So that's when I took an art history course in my senior year of high school, and it was completely opened my eyes, opened my world, and I realized there was a lot more going on, from antiquities and to learning about modern and contemporary art. So I went to Stony Brook and studied with some of the best art history professors, Donald Cuspit, Nicholas Mirzoff, and they're the professors that really taught me what you can actually do as a career in the art world. It's not just, there's artists and there's people who sell it. There's a lot more. There's an entire universe created around the art world and the creative profession. And I was working in numerous galleries over the years, in Chelsea, Soho, and it was actually at one of those galleries on 24th Street where I was the director of a French-based gallery. And Peter Hastings Falk walked in, and he looked at some of the sculptures I had and just asked me a couple questions. And I gave him the stories. And from there, that was probably, 7 years ago, Peter?
Yeah, or more, yeah.
7, maybe 8 years ago. And then over the years, we've just... we have a good affinity because we're looking at a lot of the same things. So we're looking for great art, and more importantly, we're looking for the great story that goes along with all of these pieces. So when I started the gallery earlier this year, I was looking to do something in a virtual setting. This was before COVID even happened. I was setting this up where I could showcase artists that I believed in, and that there could be less restrictions, less shipping, less arrangements. There's no commercial leases signed, where we can do virtual exhibitions, pop-up spaces. And the most important part of it is I could really do anything because I wasn't being beholden to a commercial lease where I had to sell something just to pay a rent.
Sure.
So I did 2 shows of 2 artists that I'm working with, and it was at that moment where I realized I want to start expanding the base of the gallery and start taking more chances. So Peter and I started talking probably late June, middle of June, and I told him that, Peter, I want you to do and curate a guest show for my gallery and give me something incredible. And what he's done is created this fantastic collage work, which is a medium in contemporary times that's a little bit overlooked, but has a very strong history going back to Japanese art, and then even at the turn of the 20th century with Picasso and Braque. I think Braque did the first paper collé work in 1912, and I remember seeing that in graduate school with the fake wood paneling, and that was pretty much the piece and the discussion that Peter and I had that went, we're going to go full force on this collage show, and I think this is going to be really something exciting.
So collage, before we dive into the show, and define collage for us, because when I think of collage, I've seen some artists, they use, I have one artist in mind, she uses different magazine and newspaper articles and then cuts them out and then puts something over them. I would say it's like a whatever you put over it, and it becomes shiny, and she creates art and images from those words that she pulls out of a magazine. Tell us what collage actually is.
Peter, would you like to answer that one?
Okay, well, you know,
Peter, you're on the spot now.
yeah. No, the nature of this show shows the broad diversity of collage as a medium. Usually what started off as, yes, clippings from magazines. You'd see it, and it's really fun. Actually, you can do it yourself and try it. It's really fun. You might see a crazy face. You might see a weird object, and it's kind of surreal. You can put all these things together and little glue. Collage comes from the French verb coller, which means to glue together, to stick together. And that's why this exhibition's called 60 Years. It's time to stick together.
I love it.
60 years of collage in America. So these are various artists that were drawn from the 50s all the way till today who are doing collage in different ways. For example, several are doing that traditional cut out of the magazine thing. Others are really doing painted collages in that there are fragments of materials that might be fabric or some type of cloth and the magazines and different things, you know, with it mixed in with the oil pigments. And then there are some that are, there's one artist whose collages are made entirely of paintings that are chopped up into pieces and reassembled like into a weird abstract puzzle. So, you know, and then yet there's another who is a digital collage creator. So she goes in with, you know, an original charcoal drawing and then photographs them, digitizes them, puts them back together. So it's really a difficult collage. You've asked a really hard question, Ted.
It's so important for people to understand, because I think people don't realize they've done collages before. Anybody who's been through COVID, who's been trying to figure out what they want to do with their lives, if they've been furloughed, has done some sort of whiteboard, right? So you take the picture, you cut things. And so I think people need to put it kind of in the perspective. Oh, is that what collage is? Because I think we all learned it as a kid, maybe in elementary school. We did some crazy glue stuff, took it home. For me, it was all about that there was texture to everything in the collages that I saw. But in the digital world, it's not necessarily the truth. But I think people do like collages. It's a way for people to look at something and get multiple meanings and not be as intimidated by regular. And when I say regular art, I mean art that you would think of as regular art. Can be intimidating because you look at it and go, well, I see this. Well, you can really see things and identify with them in collage. And I think that's what makes collage so cool. It's sort of, to me, where somebody who doesn't have an idea of art really could begin to have a passion and a love for it, because it's something that's so relatable in our world. So what do you want to, how do people get involved? How do people view the show? How do people find out about you guys? Tell us a little bit about how somebody, because we have lots of comments of people asking, how can they view the show?
Well, first, I guess here's where I plug. You can go to robertberrygallery.com and view the exhibition there. So the next most important thing, we basically like to get out into the media and speak with some of the best podcasts, shows, media. And Deborah Geiger let us know that Ted wanted to speak with us. And I said, that's it. The show is going to be known by everyone in the world after we speak to Ted.
No pressure there.
So I called Peter and said, Peter, we have to talk to Ted. No, so you can go see the show on robertberrygallery.com. So as
what do you want people to feel when they look at the show? What can they expect? So if they go to robertberrygallery.com and they click on wherever the show links are, what can they expect to see? And is there like narrative? Tell us a little bit about what the journey looks like.
Well, the journey looks like, because with Peter and I, we've always discussed the importance of having the great work, and the even better story. So what Peter and I did for the show is we found about 21 or 22 of the best American collage artists. And Peter didn't plug his own book before, but Peter literally wrote the book called Who's Who in American Art. So back in my nerdy art historian days, I came across a copy of that book, and I remember reading that, and before I met him, and went, okay, this guy really understands the history of art. So we wanted to have that narrative on the show. So as you're looking through the installation pictures of It's Time to Stick Together, there's dialogues and history about every artist that's coming along. So with artists like Paul Forte, there's some biography information, but on some of the images, he wrote poems and combined different pieces of literature onto the imagery. So that way, it's the collage art that he made. He's also incorporating text as part of the collage element. So it's becoming a real 360 view where it's not just collaged elements, it's actually becoming even greater now that we can do things in a virtual setting, which I find fascinating. So when I started the gallery, it was simple. I wanted to give people more access to art, where instead of having to go to a pretentious Chelsea gallery and there's someone that's very cold, and if you say, can you just tell me a little bit about that artist, like that painting, so the lithograph behind me, I could ask about that, and the person at the desk is just going to go, oh, here's the press release. Yeah. And I found that very cold and very sterile, and it never really worked for me. So even when I first met Peter, he came up and asked me, can you tell me about that artist? And we had a great conversation, and that's how you learn. So now, especially during COVID, people can come to Robert Berry Gallery. They can look at some works. Maybe they're inspired by some, and there's some dialogue, and they can ask questions. That's
what people are afraid of, right? I think that's why people get intimidated by art.
They're afraid. Right. And I have to say that when I first met Robert, the thing that I didn't identify who I was. I just asked a question. Robert is the most non-salesperson I can imagine, because he was just passionate about what was hanging there. And he told me the story, and we interacted, and I said, this is really terrific. He didn't have any closing pitch and that famous ask, well, do you want to write a check for this now? I mean, that had nothing to do with it. We just had a great conversation, and I left. But I left incredibly impressed with someone who... It's so
important, because I feel like, I have to tell you where I first learned, hopefully you guys won't judge me, I learned on a cruise ship about art. That's where I sort of got my first taste of, wow, this stuff is cool. Felt intimidated till I had the champagne that they gave away for free. And then okay, I can enjoy this. And then as you grow, what I want to encourage people is nobody expects you to know everything. Go to what you're drawn to first, my opinion, and then just kind of develop. So we've developed over the years. I mean, in the beginning, we had those pretty pictures where it's the mom and the kids, or the dad and the kids. And I call it Florida beach condo art now, but it's in the hotels and that kind of stuff. And then you develop a taste for what you like. You develop something you can respect. You hear the stories. I think that is what is so critical behind really falling in love with art, and the whole everything about art is understanding the story. I love the story of Tarkai. I love Fanch's work, and I love to learn about these things as we go through. And I think a lot of people are just like, oh God, can I get that picture with the dogs playing poker, please? Don't educate me. I don't want to be educated. And I feel bad for them, because you're missing out on so much of the world, and you can get so much, you can feel so much passion through art. So saying that, tell me who your favorite, what artist are you drawn to?
Well, Ted, I have to say,
go ahead,
the dogs playing poker. One of the things that we do also in our publishing is we document the auction price results of every work of art sold at auction worldwide. And it's called artprice.com. And the dogs playing poker sold a few years ago for about $150,000, I recall. And it's one of the most probably widespread posters or prints from the turn of the century. and it was in virtually every American home, like Courier and Ives, you know. So that was fun. But what you wanted to know what we like?
What artist are you drawn to? Like, if I come to your house, do you have a particular artist that is on your wall more than others? Is there an artist that just speaks to you, seems to always speak to you, no matter what their work is?
Yeah, and I think for everybody out there, there needn't be any pressure to have to focus on a particular artist or style or group of artists or period of art. It's really, what are you attracted to from a visceral point of view? Really just, that sings to me. Go to museums, go to galleries, then go back to museums and see the quality, compare. So it's about self-education. It's the easiest thing to do. Then once you know, you might discover that your taste is very eclectic. You like lots of different styles and moods. But for me, wow, I guess generally attracted more to the the abstract, expressive, sort of works. In this exhibition, I love the work by Erica Renee, African-American artist who is in the tradition of the abstract expressionist, but when you look closely at decoding her paintings, there's a story in there. And I'll let people go in Robert's Gallery website and read about it, but it's really compelling when you discover, oh my gosh, that's what these colors or shapes or whatever mean. And so it's really, it's fun, it's interesting, and something like that, you can have conversations with your friends or family or people coming over to dinner, and they say, that's a cool painting. And you think, yeah, you want to know why? You want to hear a good story? So
I love it. How about you, Robert?
Well, what I tell everyone who I speak with, whether it's at the gallery I'm running, previously at other galleries, at museums, cocktail parties, I tell people to buy the art that you love. Like, it's more important that someone enjoys what they have because it's something they're going to be living with. It's an investment, and it's something that, like Peter said, at cocktail parties at your house, you want people to come in and go, who is that artist right here? I really like that. Like, tell me the story behind that. So it's about sharing artwork, it's sharing ideas, and it should be something that makes you happy. So
yes, happy, right? I want to feel something when I look at the piece. I want to have a memory or a thought or a feeling. And guys, I wasn't always like that. The champagne helped the first time, but you kind of grow with as you begin to develop a love for what it is that you love. You begin to expand naturally, I think, and then you kind of expand your mind. All right, so it's time to stick together. 60 years of collage in America. You guys go check out robertberrygallery.com. Thank you, Peter Hastings Falk and Robert Berry, for being on the show. I would love to have you guys come back. We could do an art lesson. I've got lots of ideas, but I want to introduce more people to the world of art so that they are not so intimidated by art. It's just like, guys, when you used to drink that glass of wine and the person said they smelled chocolate and you're like, I don't know what is in this wine. It just takes some time to develop that. And you have to be around people who are willing to help you develop that. So both of these gentlemen, thank you so much, guys, for being on the show. Appreciate it. Go check it out, robertberrygallery.com. Peter and Robert, have a great day. Thank you so much for being on the show.
Thank you so much for having us, Ted. And for anyone who's watching, please reach out. If there's something you like on the site, there's no obligations to buy. Just say, can I hear a little more about that? Or if you would like to see the work installed in your house, that can be photoshopped by my staff so you can see how it's going to look. And I just want to give people some education and help spread art because we all need it during these times of COVID because we all need something positive in our lives.
Amen to that. And with that, have a great Monday, gentlemen. You guys have a great Monday. We'll be back later on.